Hey everyone, it's Andy. We're in the wild world of beer brewery today. We're making beer, so check it out. Alright, hey everyone, thanks for joining us. We're here doing another Beer Tech episode. We're out in the wild world of beer brewery. We're homebrewing, and it's the last day of 2016. We're actually making a German style beer today. It's called a Schwartz beer. It's a dark German lager. It's got a lightly malty flavor with like a little bit of roast and some nice noble hop character. I hope you enjoy watching this episode. We're going to be taking you through the whole brewing process, and make sure you have a beer in hand while you're watching this. Alright, time to light the burner under the mash and get our strike water heated. Alright, so the first thing we're doing today is heating up the strike water for our mash. This is the mash Lautering that we're going to be using today. You can see inside here we've got about 15 gallons of water. We're trying to take it up to 154 degrees. Right now we're just a little bit shy of 120. So it'll be ready in a few minutes. Once it gets up to temperature, we'll be adding all the grain that we're using for today's brew. The hot water will then take those grains, and the enzymes inside the malt will actually convert all the starches in the grain into sugar, which is what we need to make the beer today. Alright, so today we're actually making a Schwartz beer. Schwartz is actually German for black, so this is actually a dark lager with the German style. This is all the malt that we're using, all the grains. It's mostly Pilsner and Munich malt. I think most people are familiar with the flavor of a Pilsner malt. Munich lends a little more body and thickness. And then to get the color, we've got a little bit of chocolate malt and a little bit of Carafa, which is a dehusked black malt. Dehusking it kind of takes away some of the bitterness. So this is going to be a smooth, dark, malty beer with just a little bit of a roasted character to it. So our strike water is now up to temperature, and we're going to add all of this grain into the mash tun, stir it up really well so it gets well hydrated, and then that will activate the enzymes and start converting all those starches into the sugar we need, so we can turn that sugar into alcohol. Alright, so now that we've got all the grain mixed into the hot liquor, we are going to let it rest for 75 minutes. During that time, all those enzymes will convert those starches into sugars. Starting the timer, and we'll be doing our next thing at 75 minutes. Alright, so we're coming to the end of our mash rest right now. So all the sugars and all the starches have been converted to sugar now. And what we're doing is called a Vorlauf. This step is recirculating the wort through the grain bed. So it's coming out the bottom, through our pump, and back on top. And what that's going to do is going to actually help to clarify the wort. The grains are sort of acting as a filter right now. And what we hope to accomplish is make the beer as clear as possible. Once we've done this for about 5 minutes, we'll start running hot water from our hot liquor tank through the grain bed, and then the beer that's coming out will go into our boil kettle, which is to my right here. Okay, so now that we have nice clear wort flowing through our mash tun, we're going to start the lautering process. What this is going to do is we're going to collect the sugary wort into this bucket before we put it into the boil kettle over here. And while we're doing that, we'll be running fresh hot water from the liquor tank over the top of the grain bed. That's going to help us to collect as much of that sugar as we can, and it'll also take us up to the full volume that we need to boil. So I'm going to open up that tube, and that's going to flow through this sparge arm, and that evenly sprays the water over the grain bed. As soon as we have just a little bit of a water bed going, we'll open up the bottom and start collecting that wort. So we've been collecting wort from the mash tun, and we're going to put it into the boil kettle. Now we've got 10 gallons already collected, so we'll fire that boil kettle up, start taking it up to 212.
We've collected the full volume of wort and brought it up to boiling temperature. We've also added the first edition of Hallertaeur Mittelfrueh hops, which will provide the bulk of bitterness and balance to the beer's malty sweetness. We're going to continue to boil for 60 minutes and add additional hops for flavor and aroma as we go.
Alright, so since we've also started the boil, we're actually going to take a gravity reading. We're going to use this refractometer. We're just going to pull a very tiny sample. We've put a couple drops on this glass here, and then I will look through the refractometer to see what our gravity is. We are pretty much right on our target. I'm seeing 1054. I believe our final target gravity is supposed to be 1056, so we're probably going to boil off about a gallon or so over the next hour, so we should be right on that starting gravity. Alright, so we're adding our second edition of hops. It's a smaller flavor edition. These hops are only going to stay in for 20 minutes. So they're going to add more of the hop flavor than just bitterness. Alright, as we're into our last 20 minutes, we're also going to add some Wurflock to the beer. Wurflock acts as a clarifier. It'll help to coagulate all the proteins in the beer and help them settle out to the bottom when we start chilling, so that our beer comes out nice and clear. Okay, so we've been boiling our wort for 60 minutes now, so we are done with the boil, so I can turn the flame off. And we're going to put in this last addition of hops. They'll steep for about 5 minutes before we start chilling the beer down. So now we're beginning to cool the wort down so we can get it to the proper pitching temperature before we add the yeast. We're running the wort currently through a pump, through our wort chiller. Once it's gone through a few times to sanitize itself, we'll start adding cold water to the wort chiller, and it'll act as a heat exchanger, pulling the heat out of the wort and allowing us to get down to about 60 degrees is what we're going to be looking for. Alright, so our wort has come down to temperature, so we're now going to pump from the boil kettle into our fermentation vessel. Alright, and then we will just open the second valve and start the flow into the fermenter. Alright, so we've got all of our nice chilled wort into the fermenter. It's now time to pitch all this wonderful yeast. All these little guys will go to work, start converting all that sugar into alcohol. Small area to reach inside there.
All right, our absolute last step before letting the yeast go to work is adding this oxygen stone and pouring some pure 100% oxygen into the wort. The yeast need oxygen in order to build their cell walls to help them multiply. And once they get to a big enough culture, they'll finish up all the oxygen and start converting the sugars into alcohol and carbon dioxide. So this is the last step. We're going to then use the thermostat on the fridge, set it to about 54 degrees. The yeast will continue to work at that temperature. It's a good temperature for lager. Towards the end, we will bump the temperature up just a little bit so that the yeast will clean up all the byproducts like diacetyl. And once we've reached 100% attenuation, there's no more sugar left for them to convert, we'll chill that beer down again, let it lager at about 38 degrees, and then keg, and then the best part, time to drink the beer. Thanks again for joining us today on Wild World of Beer Tech on our brew day. Tune in again when we keg this beer and package it, taste it, see what we came up with. As usual, if you enjoy this video, make sure you give us a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss out on any of our content. And I hope we see you again soon. Cheers, guys!